Hello, this is Rogers Harrison, and welcome to another Sports Deep Dive podcast. I'm joined today by Brian Koparik, who's going to do some co-hosting duties with me today. How are you, Brian?
I'm great. How are you, Rogers?
I'm doing well. This latest episode of the Sports Deep Dive podcast. Oh, I'm so sorry. I should say the Sports Deep Dive podcast. We take a look at players and sports figures and conferences and leagues and put a magnifying glass to them and maybe give you some tidbits or give you some knowledge about those entities that you didn't know before. And so today our topic is going to be based on a conversation I had with you earlier, Mr. Koparik.
Okay.
It's about Division I college football.
Oh.
Because
right.
You seem to think that everybody outside the Big Ten is Division II, and that's not right. So let's get us started. All right. So now there are three divisions. Currently, in 2024, there are three divisions of college football. There is Division I, II, and III. Division I is split between the Football Bowl subdivision, known as the FBS, and the Football Championship subdivision, known as the FCS.
Right.
Now we'll talk about how they were called something else before, but for now, so you've got three divisions, I, II, and III, and Division I is split between those two levels. All right, so here's a little side thing for you. The FBS has 130 teams. The FCS has 125 teams. Division II has 167 teams. Division III has 242 teams. All these schools that play little college football for you.
Okay.
The NAIA, the National Association for Intercollegiate Athletics, which is like the NCAA, but it's on a smaller level, has 93 teams.
Oh, I thought the NIA was bigger than that. That makes sense, though.
Well, a lot of schools have left the NAIA and moved on to NCAA Division II. And then eventually some have even moved up to Division I or the FCS level. Now, as far as the scholarships that are offered on the levels of football, because that is something that differentiates between the three levels.
Yeah, Division III, no scholarships, right?
No scholarships, none.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a particular FCS league in a minute. Division II, 36.
They can have 36
scholarships. Division I, FBS, 85.
Okay.
FCS, 63.
Okay. So, and if I just make sure I have this right? FBS is lower Division I, so to speak.
No,
that's upper Division I.
yes,
Okay, and then so I had them backwards, and the FCS is
yes.
So, and FCS schools get, you said 85?
No, FCS gets 63 scholarships.
And FBS
gets 85.
85.
Now, there is currently, as of today, in November of 2024, there is a proposed settlement on the books. And if approved, FBS schools will be able to offer up to 105 scholarships. But that's on the docket. And so as of this recording, right now it's 85.
Okay.
And so conferences can decide.
And
So what that could be.
there's no, because I've always wondered this, there's no requirement for a school, like a minimum requirement of attendance or size or 2 stadiums with 2 sides of stands or anything like that to move between divisions. It's just if a conference will take you in at that level.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So there's a school that you know of. It's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's called Middle Tennessee State University.
Correct.
Middle Tennessee State University was a Division II member. They then were an FCS member, and they have been up in the FBS since, I want to say, the late 90s, perhaps early 2000s. They moved up. I'm not sure if anybody, if any MTSU fans are listening, and I got that wrong, I apologize. Please put in the comments the year that they moved up to the FBS. But when they moved up, there were certain criteria that they had to meet.
Okay.
Now, I think those criteria are not as important because Kennesaw State, which just moved up from the FCS to Conference USA and FBS Conference, still plays in what was once their soccer stadium, a very small stadium. And some schools that have moved up prior, I think like Middle Tennessee State, are kind of miffed at that. That it's like, hey, we had to have a stadium be a certain size. We had to prove, we get the attendance.
To be able to make
right.
the move.
Now it just seems, well, you'll move up if you get an invite from another conference, and if you've got the money for the scholarships, for the NILs, for all
Right.
that juicy stuff. So there you go. All right. So these structures, Division I, Division II, and Division III, were established in 1973. So before 1973, basically, you would have schools could play anybody they wanted to, but they kind of stuck to their own. They would play schools of like size and like resources, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so it was easy in 1973 for the NCAA to say, all right, well, you're going to be Division III. You're going to be Division II. Just, and that type of thing. But in 1978, the split occurred in Division I. And at that time, they were known as 1A and 1AA.
Okay.
And it was, I believe, in 2007
that it became
yes.
FBS.
And so, and the reason why that is because they gave them new titles, is because what is now known as the FBS wanted to keep the bowl system, while the FCS wanted to play for something.
They wanted a
And that's why the C means championship, which is hilarious. Not hilarious, but it's funny now because now the FBS has a playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Playing for a championship.
Yeah, playing for a championship.
And it's all they care about.
Yes, and it's funny because back in 1978, it was. I'm sorry, it was prior to the 2006 season, not 2027. Right? I've just been informed that I was mistaken. 2006 season not the 2007. So I apologize. Thank you, loyal listeners.
And also, just to be clear too, like it wasn't that there wasn't a national champion, crowned prior to that, but they didn't play in a playoff championship type system. They just had the bowls, and you got invited to a bowl, and then a committee declared who was the champion prior to that.
Well, I see. Here's something you need to know, and I don't know if you know this or not, but on the FBS level, and when I say FBS, I'm referring to the Power Four conferences,
Right.
which would be the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC, right? And then what is now the Group of Six conferences. You have the American. You have the American Athletic Conference. You have Conference USA. You have the Mountain West. You have, the Pac-2, but eventually they're going to become the Pac-10 or the Pac-12. You've got the MAC, and who am I missing? Okay. Well, you've got those six conferences,
Right.
and then you've got the Power Four. And so the FBS is controlled by the conferences. They're not controlled by the NCAA. The NCAA controls the FCS. And I think, so what happened is that the bowls.
Well, you mean the championship is controlled by the conferences, not because the NCAA still controls the teams and doles out punishments and is governing them. They just don't control the championship.
Yes, that's right. They don't control the championship.
Right.
They control the championship for the FCS.
The FCS, which is run as a championship. I'm sure you're going to get into all that, but it's been that way since 2006.
Wait, what has been that way since 2006?
The FCS.
The FCS was established in 1978 as
right.
1AA, and
got
changed their name in 2006.
I got you. But they've been having a championship, playoff style championship since 78.
Right. So, all right, so let's think before 1973. Before these were established, you had all these schools across the nation that played college football, right? And you had these individual conferences. All right, so let's take a look at what we know about high school football. So, like in high school football in every state, you've got the classifications.
Right.
And you've got, 5A all the way down to single A or something, and you've got these districts or conferences or regions or whatever they're called, right? Some states have a private school region and a public school region, and they crown different champions of each, right? Some states put everybody together, private and public, and just there you go. So when somebody, like in your state, Tennessee, right? So the 5A schools all play each other, they have their little playoff, and then somebody is crowned the 5A champion, or the 4A champion, or the 3A champion, and so on and so forth, or the 6A, whatever it goes to, right? But then that's it.
Yes.
The 5A champion does not play the 4A champion. The 5A champion of Tennessee does not play the Texas 5A champion.
Right.
The Mississippi doesn't play the Alabama champion, so on and so forth, right?
Right.
And that's kind of like it was in college football before they split. Before they made these divisions. So you had a Big Ten champion, and then the Big Ten champion, as a reward, would go to the Rose Bowl to play the Pac-12 champion. And then before they were just maybe a couple bowls, maybe like the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl or whatever.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that Poulon Weed Eater Bowl in the
Right.
Kool-Aid Fruit Punch Bowl. It was,
Yeah.
it was just a few bowls that you got to go to if you were your conference champion.
Right. And then that was great for a while. It's that like, hey, all right, so Michigan's taking on UCLA in the Rose Bowl in 19 blah blah blah, and
Right.
and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Well, then some people say, well, that bowl, that's a great idea. And so, hey, and Michigan State, they had a hell of a year, and Michigan only beat them by 2 points or whatever.
Yeah.
They
They
just-
should get to go to the Fritos Chili Bowl.
They should go somewhere. And so then more bowls started popping up. And then, and it just became outrageous.
Yeah.
I think, we got 32 bowls now, something
Count
like that.
Chocula cereal bowl. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm joking, fans, but the bowls had gotten and have gotten out of control in my
right.
mind.
And so, but before, people were basically, when naming a national champion, I mean, the Associated Press or the Coaches Poll, UPI or USA Today or whoever, would just name their own type of champion.
Right.
And maybe that their champion didn't play the second best team. They would rank them in the polls. It's like, well, Texas is number 1, Michigan's number 2, but they didn't get to play each other. It's like, oh well, we think.
I know.
But then the coaches poll will say, well, Michigan's number 1 and Texas is number 2, and so you'd have a split poll, like in 1990 when one poll said that Georgia Tech was the national champions, 1990 national champions, while another poll overlooked, Colorado's 5th down in order to beat, I think, Nebraska or somebody, and then named them the national championship. So whatever. So so he was basically pulling names out of a hat. Okay, you're the national champion this year. Yay! So then the football bowl championship series came about, the BCS. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Where the polls would just pick 2 teams to play each other for the national championship.
Hated that system.
And then after the football bowl championship series, they came up with a 4-team playoff.
Which I thought was better.
But that had some problems too, because
It did.
conference winners were being left out of that 4-team playoff, but conference runners up were getting in, and some people didn't even win their division in their own conference were getting in.
Yep.
We won't mention who that is, but it just and this year they're going to do a 12-team playoff.
Yep.
And we'll see how that happens. Check back with us in a year, folks, and we'll see how that is going down. So that's where we are, and that is why there's a difference between the FBS and the FCS. Now, like what I said before, the FBS has 12 teams that make their playoff. The FCS has double that, 24. The FCS is the highest level of college football with an NCAA-sanctioned national championship. Like I said before, the NCAA does not sanction the FBS.
And so with the FCS, how do they determine their 24?
All right. So they do conference champions
Makes sense.
And then, which I believe are 12. I believe there are 12
conferences.
12 conferences. And then the rest are wild cards or runners up, or well, more than just runners up, because some conferences, which are good, could have 3 teams, and one conference could have just the champion.
And is there
the
like a
playoffs.
selection committee, kind of like the NCAA tournament, where
Yes.
everybody beyond the conference winners are considered by the selection committee, and then they get in based off of their merits, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a selection committee. Yes.
Okay.
And it's I want to say it's a little less controversial than the FBS playoff committee.
Right, because it's probably run more like the NCAA basketball tournament, where they're actually debating the merits of the team based off of who they've played in their, you know what I mean? Where
Yes.
the BCS really felt like, and even this whole playoff committee thing, I mean, sometimes I wonder if they're not just licking their finger and holding it up in the wind to see which way the wind's blowing. You can't always understand their decisions.
Their reasoning.
I feel like the reasoning on the NCAA basketball side, and I apologize, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the FCS. Like, I don't follow a team at that level closely.
But I do.
I know you do. And this is cool to learn about, right? Because this is the other side of the coin, you know?
Right.
So that's really cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
but to make it clear, because I've had to correct you about this before, the FCS is Division One.
It is. And you have had to correct
It's
me.
not Division Two.
I have. So, audience, just so you know, Rogers attended and is a big fan of Elon, and I sorely did him a disservice one day and referred to his school as a Division II school, and so that was my bad. I'm apologizing to you, to the public, Rogers. If you would please forgive me.
Here are the FCS schools. Here are the FCS conferences. We don't have time to go through all the schools, but here are the conferences. There's the Big Sky Conference, which is has like Montana, for instance. Okay. And that gives you an idea of where they are. Now, the Big South and the Ohio Valley Conference formed an alliance because some of their members either moved up to the FBS level, or they didn't play football.
Okay.
And so when all the dust settled, they looked around and was like, well, we only have like 2 of our schools in our conference that play football, or we only have 3 or whatever it is.
So they formed an alliance.
So they formed an alliance in 2023 between those 2. Now, the Big South is, their member schools are in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. Gives you an idea about them.
Okay.
The Ohio Valley is more of a Tennessee, of a Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky type of area.
Okay.
And so so you'll see a school like Gardner Webb, who plays in the Big South and is located in Boiling Springs, North Carolina, go all the way to an Illinois school. It's
right.
And that seems strange. The Ivy League, which the Ivy League. All right, so the Ivy League is, and we'll talk about this because they're not the only conference in the FCS that does it. The Ivy League doesn't offer athletic scholarships, period. For football, for baseball, for basketball, none of it. Instead, they offer scholarships for financial aid. Okay. So it's more of an academic scholarship.
Kind of like that's how D3 schools get around not having athletic scholarships.
Right, is they offer financial aid and they offer academic scholarships,
right.
And that's what the Ivy League does. Now, the Ivy League has basically before has not participated in the FCS playoffs, but this year they're going to.
Oh,
This year their champion will go to the FCS playoffs. All right, so we also got the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, which is an historical black college university conference.
okay.
We've got the Missouri Valley Football Conference. We've got the Northeast Conference. We've got the Patriot League. Patriot League is more of a Northeast type of
Connecticut,
conference.
Boston, New
Yeah.
York, all that area.
Right. In fact, University of Richmond will be joining them for football only in the Patriot League. Patriot League, I'll give you an idea, during basketball season houses Army and Navy
Okay.
for, because Army and Navy play in the American, but just for football in the FBS level.
So they play in the Patriot
And they
League.
play the Patriot League for all their other sports.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to.
Wow, that's a big haul for Navy, right? Because they're in Colorado.
No, Air Force is in Colorado.
Yes, my bad.
Navy is
Yeah,
in Annapolis.
yeah. I was thinking about Air Force.
All right, so for all you graduates of the U.S. Naval Academy, that's Brian Koperick,
Who's an idiot? Yes.
and just want to let you know. All right, so the next is the Pioneer Football League, but I'm going to come to them back in a minute. The Southern Conference. Southern Conference was established in 1921, and the Southern Conference is the father of the Southeastern Conference as well as the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Okay.
Those schools used to be in the Southern Conference and then branched out and formed the SEC and the ACC. The Southland Conference, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, which is another HBCU conference, and then the United Athletic Conference. Now, the United Athletic Conference is another alliance between the Atlantic Sun Conference and the Western Athletic Conference. And that's just for football only, and that was formed in about 2022.
Okay.
Atlantic's.
Yeah, because I was going to say the WAC was a decent football conference. for a long
Right,
time.
but like I said, either their members moved up to the
Right.
FBS level, or they had members that didn't play
football.
at all. All right, so let's get back to the Pioneer Football League. Pioneer Football League is a national FCS conference. They've got teams in Stetson, which is in Florida, Davidson, which is in Davidson, North Carolina, University of San Diego, not San Diego State, University of San Diego, which is in San Diego. They are an FCS conference that plays by Division III rules, which means they don't offer scholarships.
Okay.
So they're like the Ivy League, but that's just for football, right?
Right.
And so these are schools that have basically said, you know what, playing college football costs a lot of money, and we don't have that money. So what we're going to do is we're still an FCS school. We don't want to go down to Division II, and we don't want to go down to Division III. We'll just play. We just won't offer scholarships, but we'll still be in the FCS level, and this is what became of it. Now, what that means, and I hate to say this, is that sometimes their champion, when they get to the FCS playoffs, is totally blown out of the water in their first round opponent. There are times when they will make it past the second round, but that's usually it. Because
They just can't compete.
they can't, because they don't have the bench, or,
Right.
they don't have the team to fulfill. So that's the conferences, and that's the state of the football championship series. I am a college football fan. I like seeing both play out. I like to see the bowl matchups, and I'll watch if I think the bowl is if I think it's an interesting matchup, I'll watch it. If it's, Sam Houston State versus Boise State, that is a game that is a bowl game I'm not interested in personally.
Right.
I like to see the FCS playoffs because I like to see them compete for something.
Yeah.
And that's when I ask people that are fans of. Actually, I kid them. The fans of that are in of schools that are in the group of 6 conferences. Let's say Appalachian State. Let's say Middle Tennessee State University. We talked to them about them earlier. Let's say a Liberty University. A San Diego State, for instance. I always ask them, what are you playing for? I mean, are you playing for a spot in the Tangerine Bowl or like you said, the Cereal Bowl or
Right.
whatever? I mean, some of those schools I named have a shot at getting to the playoff and being the group of 6 representative. Boise State is currently in that position this year.
Right.
Appalachian State has got a good program, and they could be in the mix one year. San Diego State as well. Liberty was in it last year, and they got creamed by Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. But they got it. They got there.
Right.
They didn't get to a playoff, but they got to a.
But it almost feels like they might be better served by having their own group of 6 playoff and championship versus playing with the Power 4.
Well, I mean, you could look at it. They would feel differently.
Oh, I know, but I'm just
Because
saying
they-
it's easy for me to say because I'm a fan of Michigan. We're in the Power 4. We have all the money for scholarships and NIL and all the things, right?
Yeah.
We can compete. Now, we're not competing this year. We can compete. We won the Natty last year. So, but my point is that a lot of the group of 6 schools, not all of them, right? I mean, these ones that you're pointing out, the Boise States of the world, but in MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University, I mean, it would take a lot for them to get to the level to be able to compete with the Power 4.
But all they want is a shot.
Yeah, I got it.
Because, so right now, Boise State, for instance, is right now in the polls, the group of 6 representative is Boise State. And they automatically would get that 12th seed. And so that means that the first 4 seeds would have byes. And so Boise State would be going and playing the 5th seed.
Right.
And I forgot who currently is the 5th seed, but let's just say Miami, right? Miami lost this past weekend, and so let's just put them in the 5th. Probably not. It's probably Tennessee or somebody. All right. Now, let's just say Tennessee. So Boise State goes to Knoxville, and they're going to try to beat Tennessee to advance to the next level.
Right.
Now, maybe they'll win that game. Maybe they'll lose that game. But either way, either outcome, they'll be satisfied in knowing that they at least were given a shot.
Yes.
And then that's all the group of 6 wants. I think they would prefer having a shot as opposed to having their own playoff. Because let's just say that they do have their own playoff, and for the sake of argument, let's say that Boise State wins it. And let's see on the other side, let's say that Oregon wins wins the
Right.
Power Four playoff, right? So, so then Boise would be saying, well, we want a shot at Oregon. And then Oregon would be like, no, we're not playing you.
Right.
We're national champions. And then Boise State could say, well, we're national champions. And, it would be, technically both could say that they were national champions, but everybody would remember the Oregon national
right.
championship.
Right. The Power Four would
Like-
be considered the highest level of at this time, right?
Right.
They would be, and fairly or unfairly, but because really it comes down to a lot to just resources for these schools.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, especially in today's NIL scholarship world, a Boise State can offer the same amount of scholarships as an Oregon, but I would say they probably aren't on the same level NIL money wise.
Yeah.
Because there's no regulation on that, right? So it's, I think it's just a little different. Although with the transfer situation the way it is, Michigan played in Indiana and we got beat, but they're a good team. But what everybody's not talking about is that
I want to clarify. You're talking about a football game.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Because Indiana beating Michigan usually happens in basketball. Doesn't happen in football.
if it even happens there. But yes,
Yeah.
but actually, right, because it's the first time in 28 years that they've beat them. They've
And
won
Indiana.
once in 29 matches. But here's the thing: they transferred in 27 guys this year.
Mm-hmm.
So with NIL and transfer, you can just go out and buy a football team now.
Well, it's interesting you say that because Vanderbilt owes a lot of its success to the transfer portal.
I agree.
And Coach Clark Lee, the Vanderbilt head coach, admitted as such. He basically was like, look, the way I coached before was that I would, recruit these high school players and coach them up, and just to see them nabbed by somebody else. And it was killing my program. So this year I thought, you know what? I'll let somebody else develop them.
Right.
And then I'll nab him, which is how he got his great quarterback from New Mexico State.
And the cool thing, I said all that, and it sounded a little bit sour grapes, but I want to clarify real quick. And I know I've sort of gotten us off topic, but it's a little bit in that direction of where the Power Six could become more successful.
You mean the group of six?
Or group of six, Power Six, could become more successful even against the Power Four. That's my lead into this. But the interesting thing is this coach at Indiana that is doing this, and he brought all these players in, and that one, they give him a lot of credit to bring a bunch of guys in and put together a complete team in one season from different places and all that. That's some coaching prowess. I give you, and he's been successful at other levels. And I think, is this the guy that you don't really like? Yeah. Okay. But I'm not gonna give him too much credit, but just I give him some. And then I'll say too that what was happening before now was the Power Four conference teams, the top end of that, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the somewhat to Michigan, the Ohio States. Those teams were hoarding talent. So they would have guys that could be starting on other rosters just like on the third string, right? Mm-hmm. But now with the transfer portal being what it is and teams being able to offer NIL and all that, I don't think teams are going to be able to hoard talent anymore. and it's evening out the playing field. So that being said, you could start to see group of 6 teams doing what an Indiana or a Vanderbilt's doing, and being more and more successful and making it harder and harder.
And with this conference realignment spinning out of control,
Right.
you could see some of those group of 6 schools move up into the Power 4.
Exactly. So then getting to your point, and I think the point you were making very well, and now thinking about it, just having your shot makes a big difference. Because if you think about it, with a Boise State, if they get their shot, which it looks like they will, and say they beat a Tennessee or they don't beat a Tennessee, if that's who ends up being in that spot, it really is a win-win for them because they're there, right?
Yeah.
Where if you don't win it all and you're in Alabama or something like that, it's almost like, that's almost a negative. But when you're on that lower tier, just getting there is a win, like recruiting wise and all that. Look,
Yeah.
our program's on the up and up. We're moving forward. Do you want to go sit on the bench at Alabama? Or you want to come play at Boise State? And
Yeah, and I'm sure the little playoff money for that first round.
right, that'll help them with the NIL and
That'll
paying
be
some
pretty good.
coaches and whatever.
Yeah.
So
All right, so that's all I had about the different levels of the NCAA. NCAA college football, Division I, Division II, Division III, with a split between Division I between the FBS and the FCS, and also I mentioned the NAIA. Which has 93 teams. Did I mention they do 24 scholarships? So they do less than Division II in the NCAA.
you didn't mention that, but but I did know that they had some scholarship level.
Yeah. That's basically it of our show. We will be back next week, so please tune in for another sports deep dive, and please continue to listen to us on wherever you get your podcasts. And that's it. Brian, do you want to do a shout out for your YouTube channel?
Sure. You can find me at Random Things with BK. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Also, a shout out to Rogers and his sports deep dive. If you hit that subscription or subscribe button on your favorite channel, then you'll get a notification, which I do, and it was really fun.
There you go.
You'll get a notification when the next episode comes out. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I really enjoyed this conversation, Rogers.
All right.
It's, it's one of my favorite arguments to have with you. So
There you
there
go.
you go.
And
But hey, FCS.
FCS, yes.
Division 1.
No, yes, Division 1. All right, take care and have a good day.